afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am super excited that you are here. Some people are still coming in, so we'll just give them one more minute. Uh, I used to have a principal that I worked for that would say, if you want meetings to start on time, start meetings on time. And I always thought that was such an interesting philosophy for life. Um, but yeah, we will get started when these people pop in. Okay. Thank you for everyone with their camera on. I love seeing people's faces. It makes it easier to talk than to talk to black screens. All right, let's get started. Combating misinformation with education and engagement. This webinar that you are here for today is for companies and agencies struggling to bridge knowledge gaps in communities. And we have two amazing companies here working together. So I am Liz Gallo. I'm the CEO of WhyMaker. We create educational solutions that inspire students and work with companies to design the future of education. We do instructional design, we do professional development with teachers, and we sell STEM products. We'll talk more later about all the awesome things that we do. And I have here with me today Lydia Miner, who's going to introduce herself and the company she works with.
Thanks so much, Liz. Hi, everyone. I'm Lydia. I'm an account manager at Sustainable PR. We are a public relations firm dedicated to supporting businesses and organizations promoting sustainability across varieties of sectors. And today we're predominantly going to focus on the community relations work that we do and the strategies that we built out to address misinformation and community opposition. So before we jump into all of this, I really want to take time to set the scene for why we feel this all matters. And if we can take a look at this photo right here, I think it's all safe to say that we remember the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. It was a great example of an emotional response to misinformation when there was a lack of knowledge and resources available to inform communities. So somewhere along the lines in 2020, someone threw out there that there was going to be all of these interruptions in supply chains. And toilet paper was thrown out as being one of those primary items that we really needed that was going to all of a sudden go away. So everyone stockpiled as much as they could, and no one thought to fact check that or to double check. Everyone just saw they were being ripped off the shelves and followed suit. And this type of chaotic thinking is what exists when we're faced with that type of uncertainty without the resources to make determinations ourselves. And if anyone would have just stopped to make a phone call down to, your local paper supply company or a logistics firm, you would have known that toilet paper was in fact manufactured in the US. There was not any logistic need to panic. We had the same supply as we always did. Demand increased tenfold, though, and then we did in fact have a shortage.
Yeah, I
And
swear.
this is the
What the
type
hell
of
is going on?
widespread misinformation we're going to talk about a little bit today. And the other item that I wanted to start off thinking about was if we take a look at this image here on a customer review, I think that we can all say that we've seen reviews exactly like this when we're looking at products or when we're hearing about new restaurants or things like that, where you have a ton of really positive reviews and then you have a ton of really negative reviews. And the truth of the matter is that it's probably somewhere in the middle, but those folks that exist in the middle are not necessarily the ones that are going to be motivated enough to speak out about the product or about the restaurant. They don't typically feel motivated to leave those reviews. So what we hear are the really positives and the really negatives. And those people in the middle may not have the information or feel motivated to share their opinions. However, they are the ones that can be swayed one way or another, especially when they're not given the proper resources to make a decision on their own. So these two principles, the emotive decision making we saw with the toilet paper example in COVID, and then this group decision making based on, opinions that you hear, especially when they're from credible sources, and those people in the middle that are easily swayed one way or another, depending on what they're hearing, are two principles I want us to keep in mind as we kind of continue our discussions today.
Thanks. So, really, when we're thinking about the two ideas that Lydia just explained, is this crisis of knowledge and trust. So when communities lack a basic understanding of simple or innovative projects, things like clean energy changes, infrastructure, that knowledge gap becomes a breeding ground for misconceptions. And that knowledge gap becomes a liability for companies trying to put these innovative products in communities. And in today's fast-paced world, misinformation and disinformation spreads fast and can actively divide communities, derailing the essential projects and initiatives. This real threat of misinformation that exists. And that breeds a lack of trust, which enhances misconceptions and confusions in communities, which can paralyze progress and cause the community to reject any messenger, regardless of the quality of the message. So, this mistrust can paralyze progress. And misinformation thrives in this gap between lack of trust and lack of knowledge. So, in a community, what happens when there's a lack of knowledge? People with incorrect knowledge tend to funnel information into people who are lacking knowledge. And what we need to do at WhyMaker and at Sustainable PR is work to engage and educate the people with factual knowledge to empower them to spread that information to the people who are lacking the knowledge, which is a large majority of people in the middle. Those are the people that don't leave the review at the restaurant. And we need to work really hard to make sure that we engage with the right people, we build trust, and we educate with factual information. So, the solution is to provide engagement and education. We want to be proactive, measurable, and authentic engagement to foster genuine understanding that builds long-term trust. At WhyMaker and Sustainable PR, we really empower communities to neutralize misinformation by addressing misconceptions before they escalate, leverage educational content to simplify complex topics and close the knowledge gap, and implement initiatives that are authentic, measurable, and effective. These three ways of engaging and educating communities combat misinformation, empower them to make informed choices, and really help companies and projects move forward.
Thanks, Liz. So I'm going to dive into how at Sustainable PR and at WhyMaker we use communication and engagement to establish trust within communities to help prevent the spread of misinformation. So what I would like to start with is the fact that trust in our minds begins with empathy and with understanding. And in order to establish empathy and understanding, we need to inform ourselves on a community's history and their points of view so that we can inform our approach and the messages that we deliver in these communities. So when we go into a community, we ask questions like, what are their major concerns? What are the misconceptions of the community on a campaign, a technology, or a policy, and what may they not understand that we need to then inform them about? And then if we answer these questions, especially the questions as, where are the knowledge gaps? What are they concerned about and why? Then we can effectively develop messages that'll be most impactful to address these concerns and misconceptions in a community. And then after that point, we move on to stakeholder identification. So that's the point in time where we identify the credible voices that are going to be most trusted within a community, and then they're going to serve as liaisons. And again, these trusted voices have an outsized impact in a community versus us just going in and telling someone something. We want to hit up their teachers. We want to speak with their business leaders. We want to interact with their professors, their active volunteers, connect with them, give them the information and tools that they need to understand the projects and initiatives that we're working on so that then they can become the community liaisons to spread that information throughout their community. Again, those are the people on the right side of the graph that Liz was showing earlier that are educated, that are engaged, and then they're going to be interacting with that large portion of folks in the middle who are easily swayed one way or another to make sure that they're informed in the ways that they need to be. And when we empower these community members to do that, we're thinking about giving them the tools that they need. So whether that be an FAQ, a project summary, data, and then also giving them actionable steps that they can take to help disseminate that information, like attending municipal meetings, speaking with local officials, writing letters of support, those kinds of things to help that information get out to where it needs to. Thanks, Liz. So here is an example of a battery energy storage system that we recently worked on, and it's a great example of how messaging can fail when that messenger is not a trusted source. So in this particular case, we came into this community and the developer had done everything right. They'd met with community stakeholders, they'd spoken to people, they've addressed questions, they distributed FAQs so that resources were readily available for community members, but it just wasn't working. Opposition continued to spread, misinformation ran rampant, and people were really, really concerned about the project, about its safety. And what the developer did do was recognize that safety was of the utmost concern, and they needed to get an expert in there that was trusted to help get that information out in a way that was most credible and well received by the community. So they actually brought in a fire safety expert that specialized in battery energy technology to inform the community on the safety of BESS technology broadly. That's the gentleman that you see speaking in that photo. And at the same time, they gave the town a stipend to pay for their own expert also to confirm and verify the statements that were made by the expert that was brought in by the developer. And in tandem, those two individuals were able to address community questions, concerns, and essentially all of the opposition and misinformation about this project died off completely because the questions were able to be addressed right then and there by a credible source. And the project did eventually then be, successfully permitted. And we saw that the community was very receptive to that when the messenger was a trusted person. So again, the goal there was to identify the local voices and then empower them to help spread that information, whether it be local business leaders, educators, or subject matter experts. And in that particular case, we saw that it wasn't just enough to, identify and motivate those local folks. We had to bring in that subject matter expert. But there are other instances where working with local trusted community voices in tandem with a subject matter expert can actually preemptively stop or halt the spread of misinformation. So this example here on an agrivoltaics program that we put on is a great example of how we did that. When we first came into this particular community, we had spoken with a variety of community members, just, general residents, some business leaders and organization heads. And the general consensus was that not a lot of people in the community were aware of what agrivoltaics was. So that was the part where we informed ourselves and we said, okay, they don't understand what this is. We need to make sure that we educate them on the topics that they're going to be needing to know in order to understand what this project is and how it's going to impact their community. So we ended up partnering with United Agrivoltaics. They're specialized in agricultural integration plans for solar, which means that you're going to pair a solar project with an agricultural application, whether it be solar grazing or crop rotations. And they were able to come into the community and actually present to them on agrivoltaics to explain what it was and address questions preemptively. And to this meeting that we invited general community members, the entire community, whoever was interested was invited to come. But we also reached out proactively to people who we identified as pro-solar, interested in sustainability, interested in agriculture, and key stakeholders that were more impacted by this or had more of a tie to this, as they were then able to be educated. And in turn, they were informed in a neutral setting and became community liaisons for us. So they were already really interested in a similar subject. And then following this presentation, they said, this was great. We really understand this now. And then those people who were already motivated in that space were given the tools that they needed to spread that credible messaging throughout the community, which in turn deterred the spread of misinformation before it even started, which is a really effective way of getting people on board with an initiative before we see that misinformation start to spread.
So, it is important that we are educating inside that knowledge gap. And if you are not sharing information and knowledge, then mis and disinformation will breed in that gap. And in our communities, frustration also often stems from a lack of understanding. So we really need to identify what gaps of knowledge the community has and teach away that frustration. And children in schools are a major and valuable, yet often ignored part of the community. Educating students on factual information is key to developing this literacy for all about innovative projects, the future of communities, and, you know, people want high quality education for their children. This is a very interesting study done by Yale Communication about climate, where they surveyed hundreds of thousands of people across the country. And one of the questions they asked was, do you believe that schools should be teaching about the causes, consequences, and potential solutions to global warming? 77% of people in this country believe that schools should be teaching about global warming. This is majority, 77% of the population, majority of the country believes that our schools should be teaching about global warming. And there's really a need for this to be happening and a real need for the education of our children about what is happening in our communities currently, so that they can be part of the solution into the future. So in our education system, if we're ignoring our children in our plans for the future, it's not great. Children are a critical piece of development of a well-rounded and educated society. Educating children on factual and innovative projects now is the key to developing a literate society into the future and a way to ensure that we eliminate these issues going forward. Our teachers struggle with the integration of real-world learning in their classroom due to limited knowledge of community projects and limited resources. I'm going to talk in a little bit about a project that we did where we really brought educators into understanding about local community and projects that were going on, and they loved it. And there's a huge disconnect between career awareness in our education system and what's happening in our industries. Schools are often failing to prepare students for careers, both the essential skills for workforce readiness, things like collaboration, leadership, communication, group work, and the technical skills. And there's a serious gap in our education system that teaches students about future careers. We tend to work in places where this is happening and this is accepted, but most places across the country, it is not. So there's so much opportunity in education to fill in these gaps. So with instructional design, we can build lesson plans that educators can use that connect local projects to education standards. We can tie battery storage facilities into science standards, and it is a natural fit for teachers. We've also built curriculums for longer term learning that leads to deep industry knowledge and technical knowledge. So students can get a certification that is relevant for the industry. We've developed programs for internships, camps, after school situations. We've had some amazing experiences with the programs that we've run with some university partners, and we're still finding out how successful the kids have been because of programs that they've participated in. We also do a lot of professional development where we enhance teachers' effectiveness and knowledge to share. They are begging for information to share with their students. We need to provide the information to them. And when we teach teachers, those teachers go on and teach their students this year, next year, the year after, the year after. And on average, most high school teachers see about 100 students a year. So the potential for them to continue to share this knowledge is so great. And really integrating real world local knowledge into all subject areas, into STEM, into career education, science, social studies, civics, and more. There's so much opportunity. And then STEM products are another way to get these stories across. So, building brand awareness with activity development for hands-on activities to give away at community events or bring to schools. We can really show that we care about local communities by supporting them with proven educational products like robotics kits, electronics kits, clean energy stuff, computer science, drones, and more. And if we really want to prepare high-tech skills in students, we need to give them these STEM products to start working with now. It's the entryway into working on more complicated technical skills and gives them a real great foundation. So I'm going to talk about three projects that we've worked on that have been incredibly successful. And then we're going to have time for Q&A. So if you have questions, you can start dropping them in the chat now. And and you also can come off mute then and ask some questions. So, uh, in the battery energy storage systems world, this is a persistent problem across our communities. We recently partnered with Stony Brook University to develop a battery energy storage system lesson with a hands-on activity. So in the middle of the screen, you can see the hands-on activity that we created. This is basically demonstrating a grid and how those wind and solar will charge a battery and turn on the light bulb even when there is no wind and solar. And this is a hands-on activity that students are doing in classrooms and learning all about how battery energy storage systems are imperative for supporting our transition to using more renewable energies. With this lesson, we made a take-home fact sheet so that we can spread the information to the families at home. So every student who participates in this lesson gets this fact sheet to take home with them. And hopefully it gets like thrown on the dining room table and an adult picks it up. We encourage the kids to share this with their families, share this with an adult that you want to share this information with. Talk about how this could be a potential career for you in the future, and just spread that knowledge. And our kids in high school are graduating in 2 to 3 years, and most want to stay in the communities, so we need them to be informed citizens. Another great project we did was in partnership with Hogland Group, which is a construction and engineering company that does incredible work all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. We pulled together 100 educators for professional development at Citi Field, which was like so cool. And it was a career panel where people who have careers at Hogland talked about how they got into their career. What was their pathway? What do they do every day at their job? What do they love about it? What don't they love about it? What skills do they think that they have that makes them a good fit for that job? Also at this event, we had like a vendor fair with all the different departments from Hogland. We had their drone department, their electrical engineering department, we had their CAD department, and they set up like vendor tables, and the teachers got to walk around and talk to all the different departments to say, hey, did you know that like your students can work with drones, and this is what I do every day with drones, and got to build this like great understanding of the careers that exist. And this really positioned Hogland as a leader in the workforce development pipeline in the community, with caring about the communities that they work in, and caring about growing a skilled and local workforce ready to work for them in the future. This was our best received professional development we've ever done. We had 100% would highly recommend this professional development to others. And the teachers loved it. They're still talking about it. I saw someone the other day and she was like, oh my God, I was at that event. It was so great. I think about it all the time. I share with my students. I'm always looking on the Hogland website to see what they're doing. It's really like a long lasting impact that we can bring from teachers to students. And then another amazing program that we did, we trained 20 students in an after-school program that was 4 months long on drone operations. They learned about drones, they learned how to fly drones, and all 20 students passed their FAA Part 107 drone license test. So this community now has 20 young drone pilots ready to take on work. And these kids now can have like a side hustle while they're still in high school. They can do real estate photographs, they can take pictures of infrastructure projects. One of these students actually got a internship with Hogland the summer after this program. So there's just this like long-term benefits that training our students in specific technical skills is useful for. Um, Through this project, we also trained 10 educators on using drones in their traditional classroom. So the biology teacher took the biology students out into the forest behind the school to track deer. The math teacher was using it to calculate the height of the building. The art teacher used it to take videography of the school. And now that's on the home screen of their website. When you go to their website, you see this drone footage of the school. That was what the teacher created in art class. And the students did that work. So the impacts are wide and broad when we work with our education systems, our schools, our teachers, our students, and can make a really great impact. So, to wrap up and recap the challenges, frustrations in communities can stem from a lack of knowledge and a lack of trust. Uh, when we identify where the misunderstandings are and where they're coming from, it is critical to help address the ambiguity of the issues plaguing the community, or the issues of the project, or the concerns of the project. And knowledge needs to be developed in order to combat the misinformation, in order to eliminate the ambiguity in the community. We also need to establish trust so that we're preventing opposition. We can do this by engaging and educating our community members all the way from our littlest learners in preschool, all the way up through high school and beyond, and then all of our adults in the community as well. So we want to make sure that we engage with community members in meaningful and relatable ways. We want to make sure that we're doing that to identify and address knowledge gaps preemptively to avoid the spread of information. I think the key word in that bullet is preemptively. We need to figure that out before, so that the misinformation doesn't spread. And we want to create educational solutions to transfer knowledge. So using a trusted neutral voice, like our schools, like our teachers, like an education institution. And we want to do that in order to build an educated and prepared future community members to take the work you're doing now and spread it a long way into the future. So that is all we have. It's time for Ask Us Anything. So we would love to take some questions in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, you are welcome to do that and ask a question. I see Hurl has a question in the chat, so I'll start there. On your examples, how far ahead of the permitting process did the engagement begin? 1 month or 6 months? That feels like it's to Lydia.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thanks, Liz. So as far as the permitting process goes, there is no definitive timeline on when we can come in and start helping a developer or a company with engaging the community on a project. So the first example that we showed with the battery energy storage, that was very late on in the permitting process. They were actually at their final meeting when a lot of the opposition started to come up, and they actually extended the permitting timeline to address community opposition. On the other example with the agrivoltaics project, we began with them, I would say 3 to 4 months before they were actually engaging with the community on the permitting process. But we've done it between, 3 to 4 months in advance, all the way to, hey, this is last minute. We really need your help with this. Can you help us put together a community meeting like we did in the battery energy storage system project, just to disseminate information or kind of help us coordinate that. So I know that that doesn't, directly address or give you like a one size fits all, but we're really flexible about when we engage. We do recommend we engage early. As Liz mentioned on that last slide, I think the key is preemptively trying to address these issues. So if we can go into a community early on and identify areas where people have concerns early or misconceptions that are pre-existing in a community, we can do what we can to try to address those before the permitting process begins to, you know, firm up the community's understanding before there becomes misinformation and opposition.
I think an interesting similar example that we have is with our battery storage project that we worked on. Um, there were two projects that were shut down in communities because of misinformation. And then the company was thinking about all the ways that they could educate the community with the correct information. And then we developed the lesson and the hands-on activity that goes with it on the fact sheet. So this school year, we're working with a company to identify what target communities they're targeting and where they're planning to go. So we can build relationships with those schools now. We can get into those schools now and teach the lessons now about battery energy storage systems so that the information can spread throughout the community quickly. Tina,
Yeah,
you
I
have a
guess I
question?
had just questions about the students and the educators. So once a program is developed, whether it's professional development or something that's developed like the drone program, and the students are brought offsite and teachers are brought offsite to these educational programs. Is there a way, does that continue for, say, maybe teachers that cannot be off-site? Can the same programs for the students and teachers, then does it continue, and can it be brought to the schools to educate on site that way as well?
Yeah, so the drone program happened on site.
Oh, great.
It was in their high school, after school, every day the kids went there. We pushed in professional development over the course of 6 months into the school, some virtual, some in person. That was great. With the event where we brought 100 teachers together, that event was really well received. I think the offsite about it being at City Field where the Mets play was a draw for
Yeah.
that event. Teachers all got like a free ticket to City Field, which was like an awesome perk that the company offered. Um, but yeah, we could push that into a district. We can push that into like a regional education center, like a BOCES or the regional ones in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, or
Right.
into a county. We can
Mhm.
push that into a conference. There's so many opportunities to meet teachers where they are
Mhm.
and help spread that across, right? And then we do know that long-term professional development is more successful than one-off events. So it is beneficial when we can do like a big event like that and then have follow-up coaching or follow-up, virtual sessions or in-person sessions so that the learning can continue.
Mhm. Do schools have to pay for that if there's, say, a company sponsors a program and it's developed and then the schools want it? Do they pay for it? How do the schools receive the programs?
Yeah, so typically the company will pay for WhyMaker to go and do the training and go do the event, and then it's free for the school district, free for the teachers to join.
Okay.
And we can also give out continuing education credits for teachers, which is like another huge benefit for them.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Okay. If we have no more questions, then I think we can wrap up. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you listening, and appreciate your engagement. And we look forward to chatting with you soon. If you need anything from us, our email addresses are on the screen. And we're here for you, whatever you need. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you. Thank you, everyone.